It took 235 slaves nearly 20 years to build this plantation. Hi everyone, Ken here. Hit that subscribe button and let's explore this house. Nathan Bryan Whitfield was born in 1799 to a prominent North Carolina family and seemed destined for a comfortable life in the Old South. As a young man, he served in the North Carolina militia, eventually earning the rank of Major General, and even dabbled in politics, but the lure of new opportunities farther south proved irresistible. In the mid-1830s, Whitfield joined the wave of planters leaving the exhausted farmlands of the Atlantic seaboard for the fertile soil of Alabama's Black Belt. Whitfield's early years in Alabama were a time of both hope and heartbreak. He purchased a 480-acre tract of land just outside the town of Demopolis in 1842. This property, bought from a local figure named George Strother Gaines, already held a simple, dogtrot log cabin that would serve as the Whitfield family's first home on the frontier. Whitfield named the farm Marlmont in 1843 and began expanding the modest cabin into something more fitting of his aspirations. Tragedy struck when his first wife Elizabeth died in 1846, but Whitfield pressed on with his plans to enlarge and improve the house, perhaps as a way to build a lasting legacy for his family. He was no trained architect, yet Whitfield had an avid interest in design and owned several architectural pattern books that he studied for inspiration. What began as a dogtrot log cabin soon grew into one of the most remarkable mansions in Alabama. Whitfield spent the years from 1843 to 1861 transforming Marlmont into the great estate that would eventually be called Gaineswood. The renovation was not a single, pre-planned project, but an evolving labor of love. Whitfield expanded the house in stages whenever inspiration or necessity struck, adding a room here, a wing there, guided by the ideas he gathered from books in his travels. Family lore holds that the original log house was literally enveloped by the growing mansion, forming the core of what became the south entrance hall and office. With each passing year, Gaineswood took on more features of the fashionable Greek Revival style that Whitfield so admired. By the late 1850s, the simple farmhouse had blossomed into Alabama's finest neoclassical house, often hailed as one of the most unusual and splendid plantation homes in America. Whitfield's design boldly incorporated all three ancient Greek orders of architecture, Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian, a rarity among American homes. The exterior was dressed in cream-colored stucco, scored to resemble large blocks of cut stone, lending the house an aura of solidity and classical grace. In total, Gaineswood's porches were propped up by 18 fluted Doric columns and 14 square pillars, wrapping around three sides of the house in an almost continuous colonnade. Every element of the design was carefully considered for effect. In the mid-1850s, Whitfield's son, Brian Watkins Whitfield, returned from college and assisted in adding a distinctive rooftop observatory, an open circular railed platform likened to a tiara perched atop the roof from which one could survey the acres of plantation fields spreading out below. Elegant parterre gardens were laid out near the house, enclosed by low masonry walls and decorated with marble statues and urns, creating a picturesque landscape to match the mansion's grandeur. Inside, Gaineswood was equally breathtaking. Whitfield lavished attention to the interiors, turning the main floor into a showplace of craftsmanship and ornament. He trained skilled enslaved workers on site to carve wood and plaster, and he wasn't shy about importing fine materials from afar. As a result, the finished rooms glowed with a refined elegance that few frontier homes could match. The entrance hall opened onto dual parlors designated for gentlemen and ladies, separated by fluted Ionic columns that gave the space a temple-like feel. The library and dining room, completed early in the project, later received magnificent dome ceilings with central skylights, circular lanterns that brought daylight spilling into the heart of the home. These twin domes, adorned with decorative plasterwork, became one of Gaineswood's signature features, astonishing guests with their intricate detail and the soft glow they lent the rooms. Throughout the mansion, Whitfield's penchant for classical detail was on full display. The master's bedroom, as it was called, was divided into a sleeping area and sitting area by a pair of Ionic columns, complete with an entablature and cornice overhead. Across the hall, Whitfield added a luxurious mistress's bedroom in 1857 when he remarried, a wedding gift of architecture. This room featured a dramatic semicircular bay that jutted outward, ringed by fluted Corinthian columns with tall windows that overlooked the gardens. A door on either side of the bay opened onto a private semicircular porch, adorned with yet more Doric columns, ensuring that even a quiet morning coffee could be enjoyed in classical style. The crowning glory of the mansion was arguably the ballroom. Here Whitfield pulled out all the stops. The ballroom's high ceiling was coffered and trimmed with extravagant plaster cornices, and along the walls stood 4 freestanding Corinthian columns paired with 24 Corinthian pilasters, their fluted shafts and ornate capitals gleaming white in the lamplight. Large mirrors faced each other, a vis-a-vis arrangement, to make the space feel endless and filled with candlelit brilliance. It was a setting designed to impress, a stage for the Whitfield social gatherings and a physical monument to the planter's wealth and taste. By 1861, the sprawling puzzle of additions and renovations finally resolved into a cohesive whole. The plantation house at Gaineswood was complete in all its Greek Revival glory. The timing was fateful. That same year, as General Whitfield proudly sold the fully finished house to his son, Dr. Brian Watkins Whitfield, to keep it in the family, the clouds of war darkened on the horizon. Gaineswood's nearly 20-year construction had coincided with an era of cotton prosperity built on the forced labor of enslaved African Americans. Some 235 men, women, and children toiled on Whitfield's lands by 1860. The magnificent home they had been forced to build was a product of its time. Now, as cannons boomed at Fort Sumter and Civil War erupted, that world was about to come crashing down. The American Civil War brought a swift end to the age of cotton planter aristocracy. For Nathan Bryan Whitfield and his family, the war and its aftermath proved life-changing. Whitfield, by now in his early 60s, saw his plans for further improvements halted as resources were diverted to the Confederacy's struggle. Enslaved people were emancipated by 1865, and the economic base of the Whitfield's wealth, large-scale cotton cultivation, was suddenly upended. The proud planter who had once owned thousands of acres and quartered hundreds of enslaved laborers now found himself land-rich but cash-poor in a ruined economy. In December 1868, only a few years after the Confederacy's fall, Whitfield passed away at age 69, his health and wealth worn down. Yet the Whitfield story did not end with Nathan's passing. Thanks to the foresight of selling Gaineswood to his son, the estate remained in the family. For many years, Gaineswood remained a private residence and the Whitfields were its stewards. By the 1920s, the Whitfield descendants made a difficult choice, one perhaps long in the making. In 1923, the family sold Gaineswood, ending over 80 years of continuous Whitfield ownership. The decision likely stemmed from the financial burdens of maintaining such a large property and the fact that the world of 1923 was far removed from the plantation society of the 1850s. Yet the old mansion remained a private home for several more decades under different owners, cherished by some for its architectural beauty even as its surrounding land shrank to a mere fraction of their former extent. By the 1960s, the once sprawling plantation around the house had dwindled to just 6 acres of grounds, a small island of antebellum history in the midst of modern Demopolis. Preservationists and historians, increasingly aware of the home's significance, grew concerned that this irreplaceable landmark might be lost if proactive steps were not taken. The tide turned in 1966 when the state of Alabama purchased Gaineswood from its then owner, Dr. J.D. McLeod, aiming to safeguard the property's future. At last, the mansion was recognized not just as a relic of one family, but as a treasure for all Alabamians and Americans interested in history and architecture. Today, Gaineswood stands as a meticulously preserved example of antebellum architecture and is operated as a museum open to the public. Gaineswood's very survival allows us to step back into a complicated past, to appreciate the artistry and ambition it took to build such a place, and to remember the countless unnamed hands that labored to make Whitfield's dream a reality. And with that, I'll turn it over to you. What did you think about Gaineswood? Let me know down below in the comments section. I'd also like to say a huge thank you to our This House supporters for making this video possible. If you would like to help with our research efforts, consider joining the membership program today. As always, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time on This House.